Welcome. This lesson is similar to the last one, except this one, they give you the midpoint and the endpoint of a line segment and ask you to find the other endpoint. So they're not asking for the midpoint, they're asking for one of the endpoints. What's very important with this is to be able to make sure you remember which point is the midpoint and which point is the endpoint. So for instance, right here it says the midpoint of some line segment FG is 5.8. That's the midpoint. So I come out here 5 units, I come up 8 units, and I graph that point. Now you don't have to necessarily graph it, but I'm doing this so you can kind of see. The endpoint, so I'm going to change colors now. The endpoint here, the endpoint is 8, 9. So I come out here 8 units, and I come up 9 units, and I graph that endpoint. So if that's the endpoint, I'm going to come this way through the midpoint, past it to the other endpoint, and it's asking us for that endpoint. So let's think about how we do that. Well, it's not very difficult. My x value for my endpoint, which is 8, I had to move to the left or in the negative direction 3 units to get to 5, right? So I went from an 8 value of x to a 5 value of x. Well, I'm going to go that same amount of distance further. So I'm going to go 3 more units and get to 2. So my x value for my, by the way, that's a parentheses in an 8. My x value is 2. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing, exact thing for the y. I'm going to start at, and let's do this in a different color, I guess. I'm going to start at 9 as a y value, because that's the endpoint. I'm going to go down 1 unit to get to 8, which is only my midpoint. That means I need to go down another 1 unit to get to my other endpoint, which will then be 7. So the other endpoint is 7, or the y value 7. So the endpoint of the line segment is 2, 7, and 8, 9. Then it would have a midpoint of 5, 8. So let's do another one, and then we'll do it a little bit quicker. All I do is I do this. I'm going to go, do I go up or down? First of all, let's make sure we know which one's the midpoint M of UV has a coordinate of 2, 6. So this is my midpoint. Then I'm going to label my endpoint. Point U has a coordinate 3, 10. Point U, when it says point U, they're saying the one end of that line segment U. That's variables, so the variables matter. So this is an endpoint. So that's very important to know which one's the endpoint. Now I'm just going to say, well, to go from 3 to 2, to go from my one endpoint to the midpoint, I went down 1. I need to go down 1 more to get to the other endpoint. So that's going to be a 1. Now to go from my y value, I go down 4 units to get to 6. So I need to go down 4 more units to get to my endpoint. So that's going to be a 2. So my other endpoint is 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay, so far we've always been going down. This one, it looks like the y value is going up though. So again, very quickly, to go from, again, I'd make sure I know which one's the endpoint, which one's the midpoint, go from the endpoint to the midpoint. Ask yourself, how far did I go? I went down 4. I'm going to go down 4 more. So my other endpoint's going to have an x value of 2. And then I'm going to go, all right, now going from this y value to the midpoint's y value of 7, I went up 3. So I need to go up 3 more to get to the other endpoint, which will be a y value of 10. Hoping this makes sense. I'm hoping you're able to follow this process. It doesn't get any more difficult than this. Just be careful of your negative symbols and stuff. So for instance, let's look at this one here. The numbers are really big. I still ask myself, I'm going to first say this is my midpoint. This is my endpoint of my line, point W, which is the one endpoint. We're trying to find the other endpoint. To go from 66 to 56, I've went down 10. So if I go down 10 more, I make it to 46 for an X value. Then to go from negative 43 all the way up to to negative 4, I've increased by a positive 39, right? Yep, positive 39. And so I'm going to increase 39 more from negative 4. So again, I'm going to add those together and get a positive 35 as my other endpoint, the Y value of my other endpoint, 35. So again, I'm asking how far do I go from 66 to 56? Double that. How far did I go from negative 43 to negative 4? Do that distance again, and you get your other endpoint. Again, they're going to give you decimals and other things, but it's not much harder. Just use a calculator. If you have any questions, please bring them to class.